All of these facilities are important to make sure that Ukraine has the funds and the weapons to do the task of fending off Russia. Of course, it's concerning that we have not come to the decision so far, but I think that we will come this week, next week, when the prime ministers come together. We have to have the ultimate solution and the answer. And again, I argue it is in our own interests, because any delays will simply be more costly for Europe, not only for Ukrainian lives, but for Europe as well.
Minister, when it comes to the war in Ukraine, we hear from military officials different estimations. How much time do you have actually at your disposal in order to prepare to the worst scenario? According to you, how much time do you give?
We have to focus on helping Ukraine do the job that they are doing. There are all kinds of estimates of what Russia's potential is, but it's clear that Russia's economy is basically on a war footing. Its military industry is working 24/7. On the European side, we're not yet working full 24/7. We have not yet fully accepted the fact that war has returned to Europe. It's currently in Ukraine, but it is affecting all of us through prices, through other, shall we say, minor inconveniences. But in order for those to remain minor inconveniences, we have to make sure that Ukraine wins the war, that Ukraine stops Russia, because otherwise Russia will not stop and the problem will only get worse.
Iranian regime has so many militia in Middle East, in Iraq, Syria, Yemen, and most of the conflicts in Middle East, Iran behind most of them. Just 5 days ago, again, Iran has been attacked Iraqi Krišjānis region by Muslims. Don't you think this is the time to tell Iran stop?
The situation is very complex, and it is difficult. We see that more and more there's a complete juxtaposition and a pitting against countries that support the rule of law and the world order as it has been established since the end of the Second World War, and a growing number of countries working together who are actually fighting and working against this system. And that is all the more a cry for all of us who adhere to the rule of law and understand that this is what underpins our way of life. In the European Union, we have to stay together, and we have to help those countries that are also of the like mind. So it really is a question, what will prevail? Will it be the rule of law or the rule of brutality, the rule of force?
On the two-state solution, you said the biggest leverage the EU has is its wallet. What about sanctions?
This has not yet been discussed, but I think that we need to really sit down and make sure that we're all on the same page, that we need the two-state solution, and look for the best ways to put our weight behind that argument to make that happen.
Why is to have the Israeli foreign minister here today when the EU doesn't have a unified position?
I would not say that the EU's position is not unified. For years, there have been countries that have been putting a bigger emphasis on support for Israel, and there have been other countries that have been putting a bigger emphasis on support for the Palestinians. But these are not contradictory positions. They're part of the same. So my country, Latvia, supports Israel and also supports a Palestinian state. We do not see this as a contradiction. So to speak with leaders from the region is absolutely in our interests, and we are not as far apart from one another as it would appear. It is only because there's been different emphasis, but that is not only in the past 3 or 4 months. This is a difference of emphasis over many, many years.
Minister, there's been some concerns that some countries are doing more than others in terms of bilateral aid for Ukraine, and some maybe aren't pulling their weight. Is that something that you see or a concern?
Latvia puts about 1% of our GDP into support for Ukraine, militarily, economically, humanitarily, in all ways. We will continue this. If all countries put in 1% of GDP, I would say the job would be done. Because our economy is relatively small, larger economies, that 1% would be completely of a different scale of order. So yes, we can all do more, and my country, Latvia, is an example that you don't have to be huge or extremely wealthy to support Ukraine.
There have been some statements very, very critical from EU countries towards Israel. In Ireland, for instance, how helpful is it for
Again, each EU country is now maybe putting a different emphasis on what we think is the most important. What I am saying is that all of us actually are in agreement, that we all agree that there should be a two-state solution. And this is what we need to push for in the EU, to put our weight together and push for this in spite of the obvious obstacles. They can be overcome if there is a very united purpose of mind. Thank you very much.
Mr. Trump believes that he